You're listening to the second season of the Study Podcast with Dr. Paul Wegner on Genesis. I'm your host, Tyler Sanders. With me is Dr. Paul Wegner, and he's going to give us the Hebrew words of the day.
Yeah, today we have a really special thing. We've got 3 words. And the reason was there were several things in this passage that thought, oh, that's interesting. Better tell them about it.
Okay.
In Genesis 27:1, it said, and it came about when Isaac was old and his eyes were too dim to see. And I thought, wow, you're too dim to see. Wonder what the Hebrew says on that.
Yeah.
So I looked it up, and it says that his eyes were weak from seeing. And I think that's separation. So it's they were weak so that he couldn't see kind of thing. Yeah. You know what's interesting is I think that's the same term that was used for Leah. Remember it says her eyes are weak?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that's the same thing. Maybe poor thing couldn't see very well.
Well, and it probably means like it's declining vision,
For
not
him,
necessarily like someone maybe who's like born blind or never was able to see. It's like this is blindness that's kind of
progressing maybe even.
Yeah.
Blindness was a real danger in the ancient Near East if you think about it. If you couldn't see, what could you do?
Yeah.
You know? So it made it really hard.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting one. Here's another one. This is in verse 3. Now then, please take your gear, your quiver, and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me. The Hebrew of that is, you've got the word to hunt. That's that first one in the circle there on the right. The next one is built out the same radicals, but it means the food that you're going to hunt. So it's like the hunted thing.
Hunt the hunted, kind of the things you hunt, the type of animal you hunt, probably, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And what's the core of that? How do you say that?
Sud. Yeah. That's the root. Then suda and seda.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that. I just thought that was interesting.
That is interesting.
Hebrew often uses related words to get a meaning across.
Yeah.
So that's a good example.
Yeah.
All right, one more. Now go to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats from there, that I may prepare them as a savory dish for your father, such as he loves. Okay, so we've got the word 2. That's that first word here. Then we've got young goats is the next word. Then female goats. Then good ones. So it takes 4 different words to get that. Two choice young goats. And you even, at this point, you don't even get that it's female goats.
In English, right?
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. So why don't you can you tell us that phrase?
Sadeh, or Shadeh is the first one. Sadaim is that next one, Urim.
Yeah.
And then Yazim, and that's the masculine form. That's interesting because it's female goats.
Yeah, that is interesting.
And then Todim. And so that's
the
that
good
next
ones.
one. Yeah.
That's where we get choice from, essentially, like the good ones.
Yeah.
Get the good goats.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that is fascinating.
And often I put on here, often Hebrew piles on words to make it clear what you're trying to say. And that's, I think, how they did this. They put 4 words together to get the idea across.
Yeah.
So I thought that was helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, today we've got an interesting thing that we have nothing like this in our American culture.
Yeah.
In fact, there may be in like other cultures have this, but at least not in American culture.
Yeah, we wouldn't necessarily be familiar with this concept.
Yeah, and it's what's called a patriarchal blessing.
Okay.
All right, and that's where a patriarch, the father of a nation or a family, does a blessing, and for some reason, they seem to get the character of the person and picture it in that blessing. And then often God will confirm it or will actually go along with it. I don't think it's like definitely a prophecy, but he often goes along with what the Father says. And maybe the patriarchal blessing is because they know their characters like that, they kind of see what's going to happen.
I see.
Yeah. So it's more like that.
Yeah, and this is kind of mainly happening in Genesis.
Yes.
As well, right?
Yeah. As far as we know, it doesn't occur anywhere else.
Yeah.
So, and if you think about it, all the patriarchs kind of started in Genesis, so that's kind of how come it's there, probably. Yeah.
So this passage today, we're in Genesis 27.
Yeah, and we're talking about the blessing that Isaac's going to give to. Well, he thought he was giving it to Esau.
Yeah, this is
he gives it to Jacob.
This is a tricky passage.
Yeah. Okay, look at, here's what it says. Now, it came about when Isaac was old and his eyes were too dim to see, that's that, weak from seeing, that he called his older brother Esau and said to him, my son, and he said to him, here I am. Isaac said, behold, I am old and I do not know the day of my death. Remember, I think we've talked about that before. I think it means he's old, but he doesn't. It's not that he's so decrepit that he's going to die right away.
Yeah.
But he's thinking about
the future,
and what's going to happen after he dies. Yeah. Okay. So now, please take your gear, your quiver, and your bow, and go to the field and hunt game for me, and prepare a savory dish for me, such as I love, and bring it to me that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die. Now that's kind of interesting already.
Yeah, from the last passage.
Yeah, because remember, we already know that his brother Jacob has the firstborn right and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I would think
because
if I was
of his cooking.
Yeah, and if I was Isaac, I would think I'd want the person who has the responsibility and all of that to also have the blessing to make sure that my family line carries on.
Yeah.
So he must have so much loved Esau over Jacob that he'd be willing to now go against. And remember, if Rachel had told him anything about what God had told her, like the younger one is going to rule over the older one, then it would seem like he's actually going against God at this point.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting too.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first part. What is interesting is that since Isaac knew that Jacob already had the birthright, you would think he'd want that. And then Rebekah has already been told that the younger would serve the older would serve the younger.
Yeah.
So that two of those things kind of suggest to me Isaac's going against what even God, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. All right, here's the next part. Rebekah said to her son Jacob, behold, I heard your father speak to your brother Esau, saying, bring me some game and prepare a savory dish for me that I may eat and bless you in the presence of the Lord before my death. Now, that tells me is that Esau can also cook. Remember the other time, it made it sound like Jacob had already got it ready, but it does sound like Esau could have done it because he can handle that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is interesting. So that even makes me more think that he was willing to give it up for almost not, because he was
value
hungry.
it.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Now, and he says, and I bless you in the presence of the Lord before my death. And I thought that's interesting. So even the patriarchal blessing, they assume it's part of their statement to God for this person.
Yeah.
So I thought that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, therefore, my son, listen to me as I command you. Go now to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats from there, that I may prepare them as a savory dish for your father, such as he loves. Then you shall bring it to me, to your father. Then you shall bring it to your father that he may eat, so that he may bless you before his death. Okay, so that's that part. Okay, now Jacob answered his mother Rebekah, behold, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am smooth. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I will be seen as a deceiver in his sight, and I will bring upon myself a curse and not a blessing. But his mother said to him, your curse be on me, my son, only obey my voice. Now, let me just stop there. That makes Jacob really look like a jerk, right? He thinks, I could get caught in this ruse.
That's why I shouldn't do it.
Yeah, and then his mom says, well, don't worry, I'll take the blame.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, I'll do it then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really, I'm going, man, nice guy. And go and get them for me. So he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and his mother made savory food, which is as his father loved. And Rebekah took the best garments of Esau, her elder son, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. One thing I thought was interesting, she tells him to go get 2 goats from the flock. I'm going, wow, whatever animal he's going to get, it must be a big one so that 2
should be similar.
Yeah, to be similar weight and size and stuff. So I thought, wow, okay. Pretty good size animal.
Now, do you think it would be a different type of animal that
I'm sure it was
be hunting? Because if we kind of have that phrase earlier, it's like he's hunting an animal that would be hunted, maybe not raised as livestock.
Right. So it'll be some kind of gazelle or something like that, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So she put skins of a young goat on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. Now, let me just stop there. Have you ever seen sheep, their wool?
Yeah.
So to put
Very
that,
thick.
Yeah, to put that on the back of his neck and that makes him feel like Esau. That is amazing.
Yeah.
I'm going, wow. Usually I don't see people that hairy. That is really hairy.
Yeah.
All right. So she also gave some savory food and bread, and she made, which she had made, to her son Jacob. Then he came to his father and said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am. Who are you, my son?" And Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Get up and please and sit and eat of my game, that you may bless me." Isaac said to his son, "How is it that you have done it so quickly, my son?" And he said, "Because the Lord your God has caused it to happen to me." I thought, Jacob is really a good liar.
Yeah.
He could think of that fast.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah.
That's pretty edgy, I think. I mean,
I got, wow. Okay, and Isaac said to Jacob, "Please come close that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really my son Esau or not." So Jacob came close to Isaac, his father, and he felt him and said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." So that sheep wool is
it actually works.
yeah, I can't believe that either. He did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother, Esau's hands. So he blessed him and said, "Are you really my son Esau?" And he said, "I am." So he said, "Bring it to me, and I will that I will eat of my son's game, that I may bless you." And he brought it to him, and he ate. And he also brought him wine, and he drank. Now, this doesn't take very long to read it, but imagine he's going to have a full meal, and so he's got to keep
Be
this,
with him.
keep this ruse up all this time, which I think, man, that's really surprising too to me that you can keep it up for such a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Isaac used every sense that he had to confirm him. He heard his voice, and that threw him off because that didn't sound right. But then he felt him. He's going to taste the food to make sure it's what it is. Later, it says it's going to smell him and touch him. So he's using his eyes are weak.
Yeah.
But everything else that he has, he's using. And I thought, and when he keeps asking him, he must have asked him like 3 times.
Right.
So he's really trying to confirm that this is really who he was. Then his father Isaac said to him, "Please come close and kiss me, my son." So he came close and kissed him. And when he smelled the smell of his garments, so there's another scent.
Yeah, that's the last piece, really.
Yeah. He blessed him and said, "See, the smell of my son is like the smell of the field which the Lord has blessed. Now may God give you the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth and the abundance of grain and new wine. May people serve you and nations bow down to you." Now look at this. "Be master over your brother, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be those who curse you, and blessed be those who bless you." Do you see what he's doing? He's actually not only is he blessing who he thinks Esau, but he's actually jabbing his mom, his wife, and Jacob,
And kind of reversing what God said.
Yeah.
You'll be the Lord
Yeah.
over them, kind of,
So I thought, wow, it does sound like this is intentional to me. That he's purposely trying to undo what God had said about Jacob and is going to try to do Esau.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, now it came about as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had hardly gone out from his presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. That's intentional to show you that it's creating a tense story. He just goes out and now he comes back in. Yeah. Oh. Then he made savory food and brought it to his father. And he said to his father, "Let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that you may bless me." Isaac, his father, said to him, "Who are you?" And he said, "I am your son, your firstborn Esau." Then Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was he then that hunted game and brought it to me, so that I ate all of it before you came, and I blessed him? Yes, he shall be blessed." Then Esau heard the words of his father. He cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me, even me also, my father." And he said, "Your brother came deceitfully and has taken away your blessing." What I think is interesting in that little interlude there, it's telling us that the patriarch can only do one blessing for his sons. Like at the end, Jacob is going to do all 12 of his, but there's only one for each one.
Yeah.
And so apparently, once the blessing has been given, he can't go back on it and he can't change it.
Yeah.
So that now, I'll show you what he can do. Let's look at the next. And he said, "Is he not rightly named Jacob? He has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright." Wait a minute.
Yeah, that's a little bit not totally true.
Yeah, he didn't really take it away, did he?
You gave it to him.
Yeah. And behold, now he has taken away my blessing. And I think that's interesting. I guess Esau must have expected that as the firstborn, he would have received the blessing that like normal, that would have been it. So he expects it's his.
Well, and they had that conversation, and I think presumably...
Oh, yeah, because he just talked to his father, you mean?
Yeah, like he kind of said, here's how
Yeah.
you can get your birthright, basically. Or
Yeah.
you can get the blessing,
Yeah.
not the birthright. You can get the blessing. But,
Right.
But then it almost seems like the way Rebecca comes across it is she overheard this.
Right.
She wasn't supposed to know it. So it
Yeah.
does seem like maybe there was kind of a secret
That's probably true.
process happening there.
Yeah. All right. Okay. And he said, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" And that's kind of funny because he gave everything he could to him because I think he was trying to spite his brother or his wife and his son.
Yeah.
But so he gave him everything, and now there's almost nothing less, he says. And he says, have you not reserved a blessing for me? But Isaac replied to Esau, "Behold, I have made him your master and all his relatives, and I've given to him as servants and with grain and new wine, and I've sustained him. Now as for you, then, what can I do, my son?" So I think he's saying, I gave it all to him. There's nothing else I got. And Esau said to his father, "Do you not have only one blessing, father? Bless me, even me also, my father." So Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Then Isaac, his father, answered and said to him, "Behold, away from the fertility of the land shall be your dwelling." Because that's opposite now of what he had blessed. So he can't undo that, but he's now telling the results of the other one.
Yeah.
And away from the dew of heaven from above. By your sword you shall live, and your brother you shall serve. So up to that point, those were all the things that he had given him, and he stops there. But then he says, "But it shall come about when you become restless that we will break his yoke from your neck, or his yoke from your neck." I think that's interesting because that wasn't said in the first part, and this must be the new element of patriarchal blessing that he can give to Esau.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. Yeah. Oh, and we see how that works out. It does later on. It does work out that they both are strong enough that they don't need each other's help when he comes back. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting in those last kind of verses we saw there, like in 40 or 39 even, there is kind of a return back to actually God's original plan here. And Isaac is saying it. He's like, no, like you will, like the younger,
So what you're thinking
your brother, you will serve.
Yeah.
It almost makes me think of like, it does make me think of like Jonah. That like Jonah's prophecy is kind of general or vague in a way, like, 3 days and the city will be turned. But then like, it does happen, but not the way he expects.
Oh, okay.
He thinks the city's going to get flipped over.
Yeah.
But the city repents.
Yeah.
And everyone puts on sackcloth. There's this kind of way that like God's will is accomplished.
Yeah.
Regardless of whatever, hurdles people may try to put in front of it.
Yeah.
And in this case, like we've seen, it's actually kind of come full circle.
Yeah. And I thought you were going to say that it almost sounds like he's now agreeing to it, maybe begrudgingly, but at least admitting that's what's going to happen, and that was what God initially had said.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Okay, so Esau bore a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing with which his father had blessed him, and Esau said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." Now, when the words of her elder son Esau were reported to Rebekah. Now, I thought that was interesting. Esau says to himself, but now when the words came to her, my guess is he didn't keep it all only to himself.
Yeah, right.
She sent and called her youngest son Jacob and said to him, "Behold, your brother Esau is consoling himself concerning you by planning to kill you. Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice and arise and flee to Haran, to my brother Laban. Stay with him a few days until your brother's fury subsides, until your brother's anger against you subsides, and he forgets what you did to him. Yeah, that's almost funny. Esau's not going to forget it in a few days, right? Yeah. So I think what she's trying to do is make it sound like, oh, this won't be anything. Well, you'll go up there and it'll get over it, and then he'll come back. Yeah. She might know Esau a little too, because Esau seems to be, he flares up and then he
a little
calms
impetuous
down.
kind of. Yeah. I mean,
So she might know him a little there too.
Yeah.
All right. Then now her next phrase, why should I be bereaved of both you in one day? I was wondering, who's the both? I think the best answer is probably her husband, because he's going to die.
Close,
and then Esau, Jacob, they'll kill.
Yeah,
he'll
Esau,
kill.
would kill Jacob.
Now, the other possibility is maybe it could be both Esau and Jacob, because if Esau kills his brother, then the family is supposed to, kinsman redeemer is supposed to kill the person that killed him. So it might mean
the situation, I could lose both my sons. Essentially.
That's at least possible. I think the first one is more likely, but I think the second one is still possible.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So here. We only see them in Genesis, these patriarchal blessings. This is the first one. The next one is Jacob passing it on to his sons in Genesis 49. Only the patriarch can do it. No one else seems to be able to do this.
Yeah.
Okay? You can only do it once. Isaac seemed to understand that. You can't undo it. Once you've done it, you've given it. But you can. It sounds like you can add to it.
Yeah.
And that's what he did that one time. It sounds like you could add to it.
Yeah.
All right. They often sound like a prophecy, but not always. This appears to be a father's wishes, given their character. It seems like it fits their character often.
Yeah.
And then God appears to confirm that. And often they happen.
Yeah.
So we don't want to call it a prophecy, because I don't think these are technically prophecies, but it does sound like God does often confirm it. But it might be based upon the character. The father knows this is the kind of thing that's going to happen to him.
Right.
But some of them are quite specific, so maybe it's more than that.
It's interesting. You said earlier there isn't much of a analog to like a kind of modern Western culture.
Yeah.
But it almost seems to have a flavor of like a legal document, like a will or something like that. I mean, of course, those can be amended, but the finality of it is it's a bit odd, because it's if you're deceived, Isaac is tricked into this, but it's still binding, which is kind of an odd reality to this.
And I wonder if that's more of what it is, because back, they did make wills, but wills we have late, when we get to the law, we do have more about passing on things to the children. But maybe at this time, it was more an oral will, and maybe that's what this is more like.
Yeah.
So it's at least interesting.
It is, the kind of binding nature of this, the stakes of it are so high, and it seems like it shouldn't be almost.
Yeah.
It's something that important could be, shifted based on deceit. But I mean, that's exactly really what happened.
And then once you've given it, you can't undo it. Sounds like. Yeah. So
it's settled.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's look at the Jacob or Israel's blessing. We've got Reuben, and the reason I say it kind of looks at their character, because it calls him as uncontrolled as water. He went into his father's concubine, and then the Simeon, in their anger, they slew men.
Yeah.
So that it takes something from them and it kind of shows what they're like almost in their character and stuff.
Yeah.
Now the next one is interesting. Judah, he will lead his brothers. And I actually think that word Shiloh, till Shiloh comes, or until he comes to Shiloh or something like that, I actually think that Shiloh is probably, if you can see down there, the Hebrew,
like two.
I actually think it's actually technically
words.
3 words put together.
Wow.
Yeah, because there's a preposition on the last one.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking it's, the Shah is probably which. It's an older form of the word who or which. So I think that's the relative pronoun. Then the lamed is to or something like that. And then the o would be the suffix.
Yeah.
So I think it's that which belongs to him.
Rather than like a proper noun, essentially.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense to come to Shiloh, because they came to Shiloh and still Judah was the one that was going to lead them.
Yeah.
So that doesn't, a place name doesn't make sense. And even in the text, it seems like it suggests he will, later on it says, and he will do something, to him will be the obedience of the people. So it sounds like it's a person.
Yeah.
And yet it sure is a veiled person. But I actually technically think what I think it means is that Judah is going to be the ruler and kings are going to come from them until Jesus comes and he takes the ruler from that. So when it says until the one to whom it belongs, I think that would be Jesus who takes it over and can take it over forever.
Right.
So and he's still in the line of Judah, but he's more than just in the line of Judah. Because remember, he's also a priest and a king kind of thing. So I think it's interesting. Yeah. And then the rest of them are Zebulun dwells by the seashore, Issachar is a strong donkey, Joseph a fruitful bow, and his name kind of means to add, so a fruitful idea. Yeah. He will be distinguished among his brothers. So that's almost like a prophecy. Yeah. And then Benjamin, he's a ravenous wolf. Oh, I'm sorry. Dan shall judge his people and a snake in the path. So I think it's interesting. They seem to have part of their character put into these blessings, but then an outcome from it too. Yeah. So that's that one. I thought the best one was that Judah one because that seems to have a lot of interesting things. Yeah. And here it is. Judah is a lion's whelp from the prey, my son, you have gone up. He crouches, he lies down as a lion, and as a lion who dares to rouse him up. Now here's where it is. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet. So the scepter would be a royal king-like thing, and the scepter is usually the what a king carries. Yeah. Okay. From between his feet until Shiloh comes, and to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. So I actually think this makes a lot of sense, the one to whom it belongs or something like that. Yeah. So that's what I've argued anyway. Yeah. All right. Okay, we only see them in Genesis. This is the first one. Only patriarchs can do it, can be done only once, and it sounds like a prophecy, but it sounds like God confirms them, and it's more like a looking at their character and an outcome from that, seems like.
Why do you think it's not a prophecy?
Well,
what are some of the characteristics you would expect to see in a prophecy?
Like, let's say, like Micah 5:2, a ruler will come forth from Bethlehem and will rule his people. That's clearly saying there's going to be somebody that comes from Bethlehem to rule over. Yeah. So it seems like it's a lot more clear. These are a lot more general, more talking about their character and what because of their character, the outcome that probably is going to come from it. Yeah. So that's why I see them as a little different. Yeah. I don't see them as a direct prophecy kind of thing. Yeah. So they're a little different anyway. Yeah. All right. I wanted to also talk about Jacob fleeing because remember she tells him to go. Yeah. Isaac blesses Jacob and sends him to Padamaran. I thought that was interesting. Look what he says, what Isaac says to Jacob. May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you, that you may become a company of people, that he may give you the blessing of Abraham. See, so now maybe he's confirmed, he's kind of gone along with it and said, okay, I guess you are going to get the promise from Abraham and be passed to you. So it does sound like he agrees with it. Yeah. To you and your descendants with you, that you may possess the land of your sojournings, which God gave to Abraham. Now that's interesting too, because he's sending him away. Yeah. And the land is where he is, not up in Padamaran.
Well, and the belongings and everything would have been still in the family.
Yeah. So, that's interesting too. He sends him away, and if he knows he's going up there to get a wife, because remember that's one of the things he's going to probably get. Because when he says you and your descendants and stuff like that, maybe multiply and be fruitful, you would think, okay, then you better send me a bride price so I can actually get a wife.
Oh, right.
And he doesn't. So I think that's a real jab at Jacob, or to make sure. It's almost one of those when you aggression, but it's like a passive aggression. So then Isaac sent Jacob away, and he sent him to Padamaran to Laban, the brother of Bethuel, the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, the mother of Jacob and Esau. So it's interesting. Now you know the pedigree, but we already knew that from it. But I think it's interesting is he doesn't send money or anything like that with him. And now remember the last time a servant came up from Abraham? Right. He brings 10 camel loads of stuff. Now he gets up there with nothing. Right. So the question then becomes, do I trust this guy or not? And they seem to. He seems to know enough about his family that they do it. All right, so verse 11 says, Then he came to a certain place and spent the night there, because the sun had set, and he took one of the stones and placed it under his head. Isn't that funny? We think of a pillow, but we don't think of a stone as a pillow. I'll show you in a minute what the Egyptians do. He laid down in the place, and he had a dream, and behold, a ladder was set on the earth with its top reaching to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of your father, the God of Isaac. On the land on which you lie, I will give to you and to your descendants. Your descendants will also be like the dust of the earth. You will spread out to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. In you and in your descendants shall all the families of the earth be blessed. See, that sounds an awful lot like Genesis 3, 1 through 12, or 1 through 3, right? Or 12, 1 through 3. So I'm thinking that's God picking up the blessing and passing it on to him.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wait, I wanted to show you where it is. So he says it's at Bethel or Luz. It was its old name. But then from Luz, you could look north and south and east and west and see almost all the promised land too. So it's actually a good location.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. God spoke further to Moses. Oh, I wanted to show you that when he said, let's go back here. Notice he says, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. Well, I want to show you that there's a passage in Exodus 6, 2 and 3, where it says, and God spoke to Moses and said to him, I am the Lord, and I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as God Almighty, El Shaddai. That's that term. But by my name, Lord, I did not make myself known to them. So he's saying that by the name Yahweh, or the best we've got is Yahweh, the Tetragrammaton. I did not make myself known to them. So he's saying that in the past, I made myself known to the forefathers, or your forefathers, as the God who provides, the strong God who can supply your needs, because that's what they needed to know. He's asking them to leave their country, to trust him, and he's supplying their needs, so they know that. Now he's going to, shortly after Exodus 6, he's going to make a covenant with them, and he's going to make that Mount Sinai, the Mosaic covenant. Yeah. He's going to make that, and now he's telling them, I'm going to tell you my personal name, my name Yahweh. Yeah. So I thought that's an interesting passage, especially when he's letting them know what the term was that he made himself known for. Right. I think we need to understand that when God makes himself known as a specific name, it's demonstrating his character and what he's doing, and it's really interesting. Yeah. So this one is a clear one of that. Yeah. So here's the passages where he talks about El Shaddai. Isaac is the only one he doesn't do that to, but he actually does say the God of your father Abraham. So he should have known him as El Shaddai. Name. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now, I wanted you to see an Egyptian pillow.
Yeah, that does not look comfortable.
Yeah, sure doesn't.
How big is that?
Like this.
Okay. Couple inches tall.
Yeah. And they put their neck in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, wow. Yeah. Okay. Verse 15. Behold, I am with you, and I will keep you wherever you go. I will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I've done what I have promised. Then Jacob woke from his dream and said, surely this is the place, the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. He was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. What he means by this is the gate of heaven, this is where the angels, when they go up to talk to God, they come down this stairway or ladder, whatever, and then they go do their jobs, and they go back up to God, get the next message, and come down. So when he says this is the gate of heaven, he thinks this is where angels come down and actually do God's bidding. Yeah. So it's kind of neat to hear how he understands it. Yeah. All right. So Jacob rose in the morning and took the stone that was under his head, and he set it up as a pillar and poured oil on the top. He named the name of that place Bethel. That means house of God. Mm. All right. However, previously the name of the city had been Luz. Mm. I have no idea what Luz means, but
that was just what it was called.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, "If God be with me and will keep me on this journey that I take, and will give me food and to eat and garments to wear, and I return to my father's house in safety, then the Lord will be my God." Wait a minute. Didn't God had already promised that he would be with him? I think this is Jacob kind of twisting God's arm and saying, "Okay, I'll do that if you do all these things for me." And he makes a vow, and I'm going, it's interesting. God's working with Jacob to make him do the very thing that God wants him to do. Yeah. So he's not, but I see this as Jacob trying to twist God's arm to say, "I want all these things, and then you'll be my God."
Right.
that doesn't sound much like trust to me.
It does sound like Jacob. Though.
Yeah, it does sound like Jacob. Yeah.
'Cause he is kind of,
Yeah.
there might be an interesting kind of character study in there a little bit.
When we come, I think I've got a little about when they come back, but I haven't talked about when he wrestles with God.
Yeah.
And I actually think that's when God changes him so that he then, so this really looks like Jacob to me. And so
Yeah.
he's heading out
Yeah.
as Jacob. But I think when he gets back there
He's
and
a little
God's
different,
wrestling,
yeah.
he's a little different. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been through all that Laban stuff that he has done to him. Yeah. All right. This stone which I have set up as a pillar will be God's house, and all that you give me, I will surely give a tenth to you. And then Jacob binds both God and him to this vow. I think that's funny because it seems like that's what God wanted all along, and so Jacob's now doing it. But it sounds like Jacob's trying to get something out of God.
Yeah.
So okay. All right. Let's see the next one. Jacob goes to meet Rachel. He goes to the well of Haran to meet and meets Rachel. There's a rock on the spring, so that it would not. It's either to not waste water or to build up the water pressure. So something's wrong because even Jacob says, "Well, what's going on here?" Here's what he says, verse 7. "Behold, it's still high day. It's not time for the livestock to be watered. Water the sheep and go, pasture them." But they said, "No, we can't until all the flocks get gathered and they roll the stone from the mouth of the well. Then we can water the sheep." While he was still speaking, and Rachel came with her father's sheep, and she was a shepherdess. I think there must have been something wrong with the well, that it didn't have enough pressure or something like that. So if you put the rock on it, it would build up pressure. Then you pulled it off and the water would shoot out until it alleviated the pressure.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's going on here.
Right.
Yeah.
They couldn't waste it.
Yeah. There's one other thing that's really important. Notice it says Rachel, she was a shepherdess. My understanding is that usually it's the youngest boy. Remember in David's family?
Oh, yeah.
He was a youngest boy.
Yeah.
I would be really surprised to have a woman out there, a girl out there taking care of the sheep. Remember, David even says, "I've had to kill lions."
Yeah, it's dangerous work.
So my understanding is that he must not have any sons yet. Later on, he's going to get some. We're going to find that out. But I think it's interesting that at this point, I don't think he does.
Yeah.
So that's going to be important for us later.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Jacob meets Rachel. Okay. He stays with Laban, and after a month, he said that he would pay him wages.
Right.
After a month, we make that sound, man, you're staying a whole month. But I actually think for them, that would have been common custom. If it's a family member that comes, you treat them until they're ready to go. But this one, I would assume after a month, you're starting to wear out your welcome. And so he's willing to pay him wages now.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's going on. Jacob said that he would serve Laban for 7 years for Rachel. Now that sounds like a long time. But think about it. He has nothing. He's going to have to pay his own,
He doesn't have
he doesn't have any
camels full of cash,
yeah.
basically.
And so also he doesn't have like even room and board.
Yeah.
So
that's eating into his earnings.
Laban is going to have to do that.
Yeah.
And so 7 years probably is pretty fair.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now it says that Laban tricked Jacob. Now wait. First of all, we're going to find out later that he keeps changing his wages.
Yeah.
And then he tricked him and gave him Leah, and then for another 7 years he'll give him his younger daughter. Now he says at the time, well, it's not custom for us to give the younger daughter before the older. Well, the whole deal had been that I do it for Rachel. He didn't even want Leah.
Yeah.
So it seems like that's a ruse. You know that can't be right.
Yeah.
So he knew which daughter he was supposed to give.
Yeah.
So you could tell what he's trying to do. He's trying to get him to stay longer and longer and longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be 20 years by the time he's done. That's a long time.
Yeah.
All right. Jacob's going to grow up and curb his personality in Haran. When he comes out, he's a different person. God works with Jacob by giving him his own medicine, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So that's what was going on. All right. God prospers Jacob in Haran, chapters 30. He gives him family and flocks. Here's his 12 sons. I even tried to number them in the order God gave them to him. So you'd see that they are at different times and stuff. So that's his 12 sons. Now, verse 31. Now, Jacob's getting ready to leave, and he wants to leave secretly because he thinks Laban's going to want to keep him there.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Jacob heard the words of Laban's sons saying, so now, apparently, in those 20 years that Jacob has been there, remember, God's blessing him, and Laban's getting some of that blessing because Jacob's there.
Yeah.
So now he has sons. And so now what's funny is the sons say, Jacob has taken away all that is our father's, and from what belonged to our father, he's made all his wealth. Well, yeah, but what they didn't know is that when Jacob first came there, they had virtually nothing or very little.
Yeah.
And now he's multiplied and got quite a bit. So they don't even understand that because they weren't even around at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then Jacob saw the attitude of Laban, and behold, it is not friendly toward him as formerly. Then the Lord said to Jacob, see, there's like three things happening here to get Jacob to actually want to leave.
Yeah.
All right. He says, return to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you. Oh, let me just make sure you realize, remember, the land that he's supposed to get is Israel. It's not up in Aram, in this place.
Yeah.
So God's got to move him out.
Yeah.
He doesn't want Jacob to get so comfortable there that he stays.
Yeah.
And so here's God getting him ready.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to his flocks in the field and said to them, see, your father's attitude is not friendly towards me as formerly, but the God of my father has been with me. And that's helping us to see that. Yet your father, this is after Jacob prospers, then he even changes his wages 10 times. Okay, verse 7 says this, and this is 31. Yet your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. However, God did not allow him to hurt me. If he spoke thus, the speckled ones shall be your wages, then all the flock brought forth speckle. If he said, the striped ones shall be your wages, then all the flock brought forth striped.
Yeah.
Thus, God has taken away your father's livestock and given them to me. So he sees it as God's blessing to him.
Yeah.
Okay? All right. Rachel and Leah said to him, do we still have any portion or inheritance in our father's house? Are we not reckoned to him as foreigners? For he has sold us, and he has entirely consumed our purchase price. I want you to know that what it sounds like he's done is he spent the dowry, which the dowry, as I understand it, was supposed to be if the brides ever came back, like their husbands died or something like that, and they came back to their father. That was what was supposed to take care of the wife at that time period.
Yeah.
Was she saying,
it's gone?
It's gone. Yeah, he hasn't taken care of it. It's all gone, and he spent it. Right. So what good is it for us to stay here? He can't take care of us.
Yeah.
So I thought that helps us to see.
In spite of the blessing.
Yeah. Surely all the wealth which God has taken away from your father belongs to us and our children. Now then, do whatever God has said to you. So they're in agreement.
Yeah.
All right. Jacob had prospered with Laban, even though changed his wages 10 times. He served him 6 years for the flock. Now, there's probably, Jacob is still being Jacob when he puts the white poplar things in the water, thinking that if they bred by the water there with the white there, they bring forth speckled.
Right.
That doesn't work.
Right.
That's not how it works. But anyway, that's Jacob still trying to help God out, or to still be that tricky guy.
Yeah.
All right. So he flees with his family and herds. All right.
Which would have been a lot now.
Yeah. Okay. And then God told Laban not to speak bad or good to Jacob. So on their fleeing, at verse 24, and God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream of the night and said, be careful that you do not speak to Jacob either good or bad. See, what he means good is, come on back, I'll treat you really well and all that. And he doesn't want that.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want him to treat him badly, because he probably could kill him.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Laban caught up with Jacob. Now, Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country, and Laban, with his kinsmen, camped in the hill country of Gilead. So they actually made it quite a ways down. They're probably 2/3 of the ways to back home by the time they catch him. Then Laban said to Jacob, what have you done by deceiving me and carrying away my daughters like captives of the sword? Well, that's not quite true, right?
Right.
he knew he wouldn't let them go if they didn't.
Well,
so.
they themselves said, whatever God says, let's go for it.
Yeah. Okay. Rachel, remember it says she stole the household goods or household idols. I mean, that's probably things like this. And they probably
Little
are.
carvings.
Yeah. And these ones are made out of clay. But those would probably be they could have been something that was valuable. They could have been made out of silver or bronze.
Yeah.
And so that's one possibility. But most people think that it also shows the inheritance rights. So if that's true, if she's got the household idols, she may be the one that's saying, okay, if it ever came down to it and Laban came back, she could say, here, like Laban dies, he could say, we're the ones that own this stuff.
Yeah.
And so that could be why. Then Laban had gone to shear sheep. Then Rachel stole the household idols that were her father's.
Yeah.
It's probably got more to do than just the idols,
Yeah.
But I think, you always wonder, well, why did she take the idols? But I think there's some probably good reason.
Yeah.
They served the moon god Rhea, and here's that's a picture of a demonstration of what the moon god would look like, and here's a symbol of him too. So thought I'd let you see that.
Yeah.
And then now there's that covenant of Mizpah. Have you ever seen these Mizpah coins?
No, I don't think I've seen that.
Okay, there's usually two of them, and a guy and his girlfriend get one,
Yeah.
and then it has this: the Lord watch between me and thee while we are absent from one another, and then they quote this passage, and I'm going. Obviously, they've never read it, or they would never have done this, and you certainly would give this to somebody you liked. So I'm glad you didn't give one to your girlfriend. All right. And Laban said to Jacob, what have you done by deceiving me and carrying away my daughters like captives of the sword? Okay, we read that.
Yeah.
Why did you flee secretly and deceive me and did not tell me that I might send you away with joy and songs and with timbrel and lyre? Because he's saying that probably wouldn't have happened. Yeah. And did not allow me to kiss my sons and daughters. Now you've done foolishly. It is in my power to do you harm. But the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, be careful not to speak either good or bad to Jacob. Now you have indeed gone away because you long greatly for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods? See, even Laban's wondering, the gods didn't do him any good. Why?
Right.
What good is it for you to have them?
Yeah.
And plus you've got your own God.
Yeah.
You're going down to Israel and you've got your God there.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's dumbfounded. And Jacob replied to Laban, because I was afraid, for I thought that you would take my daughters from me by force. I think it's interesting. He's answering the first question that he gave him, even though he'd already asked another one.
Yeah.
Right. And the one to whom you find the God shall not live. In the presence of your kinsmen, point out what is yours among my belongings and take it for yourself. For Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. So, that would have been a bummer if they'd have found him.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Now we're going to hear a little more about that, what has actually happened. These 20 years I've been with you, and your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried, nor have I eaten the rams of your flock. That which was torn by beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself. You required it of my hand, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. That appears that's unfair. Like usually the owner would take the, if it's stolen or if it's taken by an animal, a bear or something like that, then, it's not the shepherd's fault.
Right.
But apparently Laban made him do it.
Yeah.
Thus I was by day the heat consumed me and frost by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I have served you 14 years for your daughters and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham and the fear of Isaac, had not been with me, surely by now you would have sent me away empty-handed. I think that's true.
Yeah.
God has seen my affliction and the toil of my hands, and he rendered judgment last night. So when God came to Laban, that was him rendering judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Laban said, the heap is a witness between you. So now they're going to make that covenant that I was showing you, that pennant. Okay. Therefore he named it Gilead. And Mizpah, he said, may the Lord watch between you and me when we are absent from one another. If you mistreat my daughters, they don't keep this part or put this part in. Or if you take wives besides my daughters, although there's no man to see us, God is witness between you and me. Laban said to Jacob, behold this heap and behold this pillar, which I have set between you and me. This heap is a witness, and the pillar is a witness that I will not pass by this heap for you to you for harm, and you will not pass by this heap and this pillar to me for harm. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor. So they take both gods, you know, Laban's God and his God. The God of their father judged between us. So Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. So I think this is the context that little pennant comes out of. And you can see they don't trust each other is the reason they make this little pennant thing.
Yeah.
So I thought it was funny.
That is funny.
So don't ever do that.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, here's the conclusion. The patriarchal blessing only occurs in Genesis, and it appears to be condoned by God and even blessed by God.
Yeah.
Because he seems to confirm some of it. God confirms his blessing on Jacob and uses Laban to grow Jacob, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
And the covenant is Mizpah is not a blessing. So don't ever give it to somebody. So this is the passage. And I thought, man, we've got some really interesting things here to help us. So I thought what I tried to do is show you some of the things that we once again would miss if we went through on our own.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's really helpful.
Yeah. So it is interesting.
Very interesting.
So,
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, that's been fun.
Yeah.
All right. See ya.